Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and the consolidated figures for episode 3 of the 60th anniversary specials of Doctor Who, The Giggle, are out, at least reported by several sources, not the sources I normally go with, but 100% legitimate sources. And as has been the case with every 60th anniversary special after the Starbreeze, there is a decline. We are seeing less and less people turn into the 60th anniversary specials as they progress, and that is not what I predicted. Prior to the 60th anniversary specials releasing, I predicted that it would start out half decent, dip quite a bit, and then come back up to at least equal, if not better, than the first special for the final one, mainly because of Neil Patrick Harris and conclusions, if set up properly, with a lot of excitement from the fan base, do better than the first entries into a trilogy like this. But that was not the case whatsoever, and I believe that that is indicative of the fan response to the 60th anniversary specials and people rejecting the lore breaking and just general poor writing of the 60th anniversary specials. We have the previous special numbers here. Doctor Who TV hasn't quite updated with the consolidated figures, but we'll take a look at those in a moment. For the overnight of Special 1, the Starbreeze, only 5 million. That is significantly lower than I expected, with a strong consolidated, but when you're already at a bad starting point, a strong consolidated isn't going to help you much with a roughly around 2.6 million more people checking in over the next 7 days. And then with Special 2, 4.83 million in the UK watching overnight, getting it up to 7.14. Again, a relatively decent hold, but when you're at such a bad starting point for something like this, for an anniversary, for an episode with the returning talents of David Tennant, Catherine Tate, and Russell T Davies, that is significantly lower than it should be with the 7.14 consolidated. Now, the overnights for the Giggle was the lowest yet with 4.62 million people. That is not good. That is barely more than the worst of the Jodie Whittaker run, which was so bad that there were reports that the show was going to get canceled if not for the major investment made by Disney. I really don't understand how people are still defending these numbers and saying, despite this massive downtrend, equaling at this point near a million less people watching on the consolidated once we get to those numbers for the Giggle than started out on it. I don't understand how people can say the downtrend is okay. If nothing else, the downtrend in and of itself should convince these people that maybe their position isn't as strong as they believe it to be. But there's one thing that I do need to mention here before we look at those consolidated figures that a lot of people have been asking me to talk about in the comments of my other videos and on Twitter, is the reports that there might be some potential manipulation going on with these numbers. I am 100% not saying it one way or another. I don't have any evidence one way or another, but enough people have asked that I need to at least acknowledge these reports that the consolidated numbers are supposed to be for 7 days. And that's what they're being reported as, is these are the 7-day figures, but we're not getting these numbers until significantly later on in the week, closer to the 10-day mark rather than the 7-day mark. And this isn't something that they need to do math to get the stuff together. They don't need to do research from a bunch of different locations, because we get the overnights right away. We get those immediately. So these numbers are available to the BBC as soon as that 7-day period comes to a close. So some people are saying that they're waiting until the numbers get over a certain benchmark, 7 million in the case of the special, The Wild Blue Yonder, before releasing them and claiming that they're the 7-day marks, because there were reports before these numbers came out, the 7.14 for The Wild Blue Yonder, on the actual 7-day mark, that said it was closer to 6.9. I cannot say one way or another. I have not seen enough evidence to say if it is a manipulation, if they are actually giving us the 10-day numbers rather than the 7-day numbers. I'm not making a statement one way or another, but enough people have brought this up, brought this to my attention, and wish that I at least talk about it, that I had to mention it in this video. But I'm not making a statement one way or another. It is an interesting thing to think about and research, and maybe at some point it will be proven, but I can't say one way or another. Now, the numbers for the consolidated figures for the Giggle are a measly 6.84 million viewerships. That is embarrassing, honestly. They didn't even crack the 7 million mark. We're at the point where it's nearing a million less people in the UK watched the Giggle versus watched the Starbreeze. That is a sharp decline. Now, I can't even predict what the viewership figures for the upcoming Christmas special will be because of this massive decline. There was a lot of people who I thought would be interested in seeing the new Doctor, similar to how Jodie Whittaker's first episode shot up in viewership quite high, over the 8 million overnight figure mark. But when you see these figures, when they can't even beat those, and the Shudigawa episode that introduced him didn't get any more viewership than the previous two 60th anniversary specials, I think my initial prediction of a sharp spike of curiosity for Shudigawa will not be the case, especially because we saw a large amount of his doctor in the Giggle, so that curiosity factor may not be as much of a contributing factor as I originally predicted it would be. So I'd be very interested to see how that all plays out in the end, but I do predict that it will be less than the Giggle and definitely less than the Star Piece. But that is what we're looking at for the consolidated figures of the Giggle. I really want to see how this plays out with the fans out there, the more the stands who are defending these specials implicitly against any legitimate criticism whatsoever. I'd love to see how they're going to spin this as good, despite it being barely better than Jodie Whittaker's worst numbers and a massive downtrend from the beginning of the specials to the end. I'd love to hear those arguments, but I'd also love to hear from the actual fans, the people who have some common sense. Even if you like the specials, even if you were a fan of it, but you're a normal common sense thinking person who can have a mature discussion with someone, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did you like about these specials? What didn't you like? That's all I care about. You can disagree with me 100%, but if you can have a mature discussion about it, I absolutely want to know your opinion, and I absolutely want to know what you think about these figures and the episodes themselves. But that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.